Sometimes he's arguing that trans people shouldn't be in sports, and he's wrong. Sometimes he's arguing that gay people are bad, and he's wrong. And then sometimes he just gets really mad at cartoons for some reason. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before that, got a couple announcements. If you have not subscribed over to Sunset City, you should do so. And just as a little thing, we recently had our 4th host for Sunset City return, and I want to go ahead and share the moment of their return with all of you.
Welcome back to Sunset City, a Sonic podcast for the classic and modern age. I'm Nick, and within us there are 2 wolves, both of them named Channel Pup.
Double pup penetration.
And who has 2 thumbs, 2 cat ears, and 2 big bags full of your confused feelings? It's Suris!
Yeah, I guess.
And, we got a lot to go over today, guys. Got some pretty big news.
Hey, you guys hear something?
Whoa!
Hey guys, what'd I miss?
The dead live! God has abandoned us! Gator Jesus was right! Ah!
Oh hey, cool! We got LS Mark back.
And I just want to go ahead and thank Wayne his boss for animating that entire segment for Sunset City for his return, and also thank Nick and Channel Pup for contributing their voices and characters to the bit over and above what they already do for Sunset City. If you have not subscribed to Sunset City already, that is a very loud laugh. That is a very loud laugh. I need to fix that. That laugh, as much as it gives me life,
look at Tulip in
needs to be lowered down a little bit. Behind the Knoll, thank you very much for subscribing over on Prime, and Ashuri Lenzi, thank you very much for the follows. But as I was saying, if you haven't subscribed to Sunset City, please go ahead and do so. It is a podcast that I do with all of those people, and they are wonderful. Next, we will get into fan art, and then we will get into, of course, Ben Shapiro. Because, well, why wouldn't we? So, first of all, we have from I Am Skyclad what seems to be a recreation of Middle Ages art, but including my character, so thank you very much for that. Next, we have from Some Scribbles and What's Not, we have a cat Suris, which of course, there's a cat Suris. We have many cat Surises now. And finally, we have a piece that I have gotten permission to use for other projects. We have Sleeping Suris from Mathematical Cabbage. I want to thank everybody who has submitted fan art, especially today, for dropping all of your art into the fan art section of the Discord. And with that, let's go ahead and get into, not get into Ben Shapiro, that would be awkward. Let's just get into the topic, and the topic involves Ben Shapiro. Is that better? Does that elicit less weird feelings from the audience? I hope so. All right, Benny boy, let's begin.
This is why you have Cartoon Network, which it's a Cartoon Network. Yes, they have Adult Swim, but it is a network that is meant for children. Now, attempting to indoctrinate...
Wait. Hold on. Cartoon Network meant for children. I'm going to go and say this right now. Cartoons are not inherently meant for children. If that was the case, then we wouldn't have, hentai. But let's go ahead and continue, Benny boy.
Indoctrinate children in this particular lexicon, because it's not enough that they speak this language, it's that you have to speak the language too. In a sectarian war, you have to make sure that people know the rights and people know the rituals. And this is part of the rights and rituals, is adopting this sort of bizarre language and this bizarre philosophy of gender that nobody actually understands because it is utterly, internally incoherent.
Wait, nobody understands gender because it's internally incoherent? I can name quite a few sociologists who could understand it very easily, but Ben, just on a base level, you understand gender already. In fact, I'd say that most people already have a pretty good understanding of gender. So a really quick way of explaining it, for those who don't know, there's your biological bits, and these are the things that we use to determine your sex. But then, let's say you're out and you've got long hair and a dress, and you have a voice that sounds kind of like this. And when you do that, most people are going to assume, oh, you're a woman. And if you go out and you've got a bunch of facial hair, big burly muscles, and you've got all that other stuff, then people are probably going to assume that you're a guy. These social cues are already fairly well understood to people. These are not news to anyone. But I think Ben has to make a show of deliberately not understanding these things, because otherwise his point wouldn't land as well with his audience.
So Cartoon Network put out a tweet yesterday. Here's to not only normalizing gender pronouns, but respecting them too. Whether you use he, she, them, or something else, we acknowledge and love you, right? Because this is all the things, right? This is the elements that were just mentioned in that Edsel column, right? By that tweet signifies all of them, right? It's othering. If you don't agree with us, then you are a member of an outgroup.
It's not othering. It's literally an attempt at inclusivity. Ben Shapiro, Ben needs to sell you on the idea that it is othering to accept this language, which deliberately others nobody, whereas it would necessarily not be othering to reject this language, which necessarily makes it harder for people who are trans or gender nonconforming to exist in the world. Ben has to sell you on the idea that inclusivity is exclusivity. As incoherent as that thought process is.
It is treating people as though they are bizarre and exterior, and it is moralizing.
Wait, how is it treating people as bizarre? Okay, so, Ben, what is more bizarre? This conversation. Hi, how are you? Hi there. What's your name? Well, my name is Martha. Okay, that's awesome, Martha. And then that's it. Because that's really all the conversation had to be. That's a conversation that can be with a cis person, trans person, etc. The next part of that conversation would likely go like this. Hey, what are your pronouns? Oh, she, her. Cool. Now I know to call you a girl. Easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Who's othered by that? Pretty much nobody. But who is othered in this conversation? Hi, what's your name? Martha. Martha? But that's a girl's name. And you're a guy. Well, wait, hold on. Now, hypothetical Martha, whether she's trans or cis, has now been otherized. She's literally been put into an outgroup because of one person's non-understanding of how gender works. That's otherizing. That automatically made one person otherized. And I know this is a hypothetical that I'm just throwing out randomly, but I think there's at least one person in the audience, maybe even two, who've actually experienced probably that exact same conversation. Sarah Raptor Flock says it's too much work. What are your name and pronouns? Or, what's your name? That's not too much work. If you think it's too much work, you're lazy as shit. Do not ever tell me that... Star Raptor, I'm just going to throw this out there. Do not tell me that it's too much work to ask somebody's pronouns if you will go through the effort of EV training a Pokemon. You dumb shit. Anyway, come on, Ben, let's go.
You're not loving and you're not good unless you use the sort of language that we want you to use, even if that language is actually counter to reality, counter to biology, and counter to the ability to communicate clear ideas.
Okay, so what are your pronouns? He, him. There we go. I've communicated a clear idea. Is it counter to biology? No, because gender's separate from biology. You're committing a category error.
So they put out this tweet, and it has several graphics of cartoon characters. One cartoon character says, gender pronouns describe a person's gender identity. Another one says, examples of pronouns are she, her, they, them, and she, her.
Zeezer, not she.
A third character says, a lot of people are learning about gender. If you're comfortable, you can share your own gender pronouns.
So, maybe it would be a good idea to point out that these are specifically Steven Universe characters, and one of the characters shown on screen is Stevani, who's literally a fusion of a... As far as we knew up to that point, a cis guy and a cis girl. What do you call Stevani at that point? The best thing to do is to quote Garnet and just call them an experience.
And then it says underneath, gender pronouns. We can't tell someone's gender just by looking at them, and shouldn't assume we know. There are many gender identities beyond girl or boy. Some people don't identify as any gender. Okay, this is just indoctrination into nonsense.
It's not indoctrination to nonsense. Literally, if you accept gender as a social category, and some people don't really find the extremes to be what they fit into, that's not indoctrination. That's just people explaining to you how they experience the world.
Because there is no biological basis to this. It is just semantic game playing. But it's not about actually making the world a better place. It's about in-group signaling that you are a member of the loving woke.
No, it literally is trying to make the world a better place. Like, okay, so Ben's show deliberately tries to make the world a worse place for people who are, say, trans. It behooves him to say that content that is trans inclusive, which excludes nobody, necessarily excludes people who aren't, quote, woke. By throwing people who accept trans science as woke, by putting them into that category, you are immediately doing exactly what you are claiming Cartoon Network's doing here. You are otherizing. This is the thing that we see a lot with the people, and I'm gonna do something that would be considered otherizing as well. I'm going to put a label on a type of person, but you'll probably know the type of person I'm talking about. If I were to say the red-pilled dude bro, this type of person, I'm sure there's at least somebody who knows someone who fits that category somewhat. If I say the red-pilled dude bro and then I say the woke liberal, these are two categories, and these are two categories that are necessarily going to be in flux against one another. Ben is trying to keep people separated into these categories instead of just accepting a change in lexicon. A simple change in lexicon, a change that's already happening despite his whining, prevents any of this otherizing, at least in this instance.
Hey, that's what Cartoon Network is doing right there. And if you refuse to speak the language, then you are cast out into the outer darkness.
How? Okay, so wait. At what point does that tweet say you're cast out into the outer darkness for not understanding? Where did it show that? Are you having to pull that meaning out of nowhere?
And this sort of language characterizes everything that is happening in our politics right now. Gavin Newsom, yesterday, he was tweeting out about the Trump administration saying it would be cutting $200 million in federal health care funding to California because the state requires insurance providers to cover abortions, right? Which is a normal political issue. You'll see Democrats attempt to hold back funds based on pro-life positions. You'll see Republicans attempt to hold back funds based on anti-life positions. Here's Gavin Newsom's tweet.
Anti-life positions. You mean choice positions. Fine, we can play that game too. Pro-birth versus anti-choice. Or pro-birth is anti-choice. You can be pro-choice, or you can be pro-birth, or you can be anti-choice. We can play the word game. For somebody who is so worried about policing everybody's semantics, it would sure be inconvenient if we were to play the exact same semantics games with Ben Shapiro.
Nothing like the pro-life party eliminating healthcare during a global pandemic. California will survive without this dollars for now, but their frail, pathetic, patriarchal system they are so desperate to protect won't. Right? That is in-group signaling. When he uses the word patriarchal, you might say to yourself, wait, Gavin Newsom is a dude, isn't he?
Yeah, and? So, wait, hold on. Ben, why does it matter if he's a dude? Can a guy not recognize that there's a majority of male leaders in a country? And that a lot of laws specifically target women only? Things like, I don't know, abortion laws, something you brought up? How is that signaling when it's literally just describing a very base thing in reality? Like, I'm sure that if you were to try to pull intent from the tweet, you could potentially find it to be virtue signaling. Oh, he's trying to virtue signal people who are going to use his language. Okay, fine. You might be able to pull that out. Maybe. But the reality is we don't have that many. They do exist, however, but we don't have that many laws in the United States, at least over and above ones that restrict women, that restrict strictly men. As a result, I'd have to wonder, what kind of word would you describe that? What kind of word would you use to describe a system that favors mostly men? If I were to use any number of jumping through loop-de-loops words, then Ben might be more okay with it, but as soon as I say patriarchal as a shorthand, he's gonna suddenly go, aha, you're a virtue-signaling woke libcuck. Or some dumb shit like that. Which is kind of ironic, considering that Ben is also the same type of person that argues that overcomplicating conversations, overcomplicating things with language like the language we would use to describe gender, is bad and anti-pragmatic to how conversation flow should normally go.
Yes, he is. You might say, isn't he the governor of California? You know, the head of that system? Yes, he is. You might say, well, isn't that system, wasn't that created by men, the one that he's taking advantage of? Yes, it is. It's not about that. It's about signaling to everybody else he speaks the lingo. The lingo, again, that secret knock, the lingo is terms like patriarchal, terms like systemic injustice, terms like je, jur, zay, zem, whom, him, flem, plum.
Okay, so now you're creating a straw man. So, on the one hand, yes, there's a point that he's making here that is actually somewhat correct. That when you do use particular kinds of language, it does signal to people that you might be more or less safe. There's a myriad of things that can signal whether or not your particular ideology is more or less safe in a particular area. So, as an example, one of the things that we argue a lot on the left is about how dog whistles are used. So let's say that you are a police officer, and you happen to give the okay hand signal to a camera. There's a group of people who are going to see that and just go, oh, he said okay, and there's another group of people who are going to see that and go, oh, he's one of us. They're going to see it as the white power sign, which the ADL has recognized as something that started as a meme and then literally got appropriated by white supremacists, and now it's a thing that they will use to signal to each other. That exact thing happens, and it's called dog whistling. We recognize it all the time, and it definitely can happen on the left. Let's say that I'm talking on Twitter, and I say something about seizing the means of production. Somebody's going to see that and immediately think, oh, this dude likes Marx, or this dude likes Lenin, or this dude likes Kropotkin, or whoever the fuck they particularly gleam their lefty ideology from. In theory, they're going to look at me and say, aha, this is somebody who thinks like me. Ben's not actually wrong about that. What he has not demonstrated, however, is that in this case, it is or isn't bad. So, for instance, if I were to pull things back to the dog whistling conversation, we have to determine why a dog whistle is bad. And it usually is going to come down to the type of ideology we're trying to signal to. So let's say that I'm, quote, dog whistling, in this particular case, signaling in any way, to trans people that my stream or my channel or whatever is safe for them to be in. This is a place where it's safe for them to talk about being trans. Likely, what's going to happen is I'm just going to get more trans people in my stream. And they're just going to talk about their lived experiences being trans. And we might get one or two extremists from that, but it's not going to inherently nurture extremism. However, if I were to do, say, the white power sign, like I mentioned before, the types of people who would be congregating towards me at that point would be potential white supremacists. By definition, an extreme ideology. The dog whistle is being used to signal to people who mean others harm. Trans people, as a category, do not necessarily mean people harm. White supremacists, as a category, necessarily mean people harm. Therein lies the actual issue with a dog whistle. And it's why we point out when people are dog whistling. We usually don't point out when somebody's just doing, say, the Wakandan salute, because it technically exists as a dog whistle. You do it, and then people who don't know what you're talking about see it, and they're like, okay, that's kind of weird, but sure, whatever. Or, hey, that's just their weird salute. But then somebody who's seen Black Panther goes, this is somebody who likes Black Panther. I can talk to them about the movie. There's benign examples like that, and then there are more caustic examples like if somebody puts their name on Twitter as haha 1350. We already know that 1350 is despite making up 13% of the population, 50% of the crimes are committed by blah, 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 blah. We already know what that is signaling to. It's signaling to racists that want to blame all the crime in the United States on black people. There's a reason we point that out. What Ben's going to do here is do the exact same thing, pointing out something he deems as a dog whistle, but what he's not going to be able to demonstrate is that it's harmful.
Right, all of this crap is designed for one thing and one thing only, and that is to create a secret handshake of the upper crust. That's what that is. The sort of in-group woke signaling does drive a reverse signaling on the part of the right. But that signaling used to be stuff that people sort of considered rote and uncontroversial. So, for example, the left is very angry today because David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, both the senators from Georgia, who are in very competitive runoff races right now, opposed renaming the Atlanta Braves. And people are like, why are they even commenting on this? The answer is because this is also a form of in-group signaling. This is signaling to their own constituents that they are not a member of the woke elite class. Or they are not going to speak that language. So a counter language has formed in rejection of this language. Now,
wait, a counter language has formed? So if I were to just accept that carte blanche, then couldn't we just engage in some horseshoe theory bullshit and just say they're doing just as badly? I'm not going to do that, though. Instead, what I'm going to point out is the reason that the Braves thing even happened in the first place was around that time, a lot of conversation was happening around racism and different things that had racist roots in the country. And things like calling the Indians Braves or calling Native Americans Braves. Kind of weird. Like, making an entire football team off of a stereotype of indigenous people, kind of seen as weird in the middle of the racial climate, right? But at the end of the day, it is still a conversation that was had around that time. For those who couldn't tell, this is an episode from a few months ago. But we'll continue.
I'm not saying they're wrong, because they're not. I totally agree with them. I don't think that the Atlanta Braves is an insulting name. I don't think the Cleveland Indians was an insulting name.
Okay. But did people who were actual Native Americans think it was insulting? Because just existing as someone who's outside of those people, outside of those conversations, merely saying, well, I didn't find it insulting. Like, let's say a white person is sitting there looking at blackface and goes, I don't see how that's insulting. Why does that factor in? I'm not saying white people can't have conversations about this shit, but I am saying, like, what weight do I attribute to your opinion here?
I mean, even if you want to make the case that the Washington Redskins was an insulting name, which, again, is controversial and I don't really agree with, even if you want to make that case.
Okay, so Washington Redskins. What if we had a team that was called the Blackskins? Or the Yellow Skins, signaling to Asian people or signaling to African Americans? Those conversations would still be happening.
There's a world of separation between using the term Redskin and using the term Indians, Braves, or like Kansas City Chiefs, right? That you can see the difference on its face. 3 of those terms cannot even be construed as derogatory toward a particular group of people.
But they can be construed as stereotypical. And building an entire team around a stereotype, which in and of itself can be used for racism, I can see why the conversation at the very least was happening.
Okay, but the idea here from Loeffler and Perdue is this is, again, a form of in-group social signaling. It is saying that the wokes should not be able to take away sort of common items that we used to hold in common. So Loeffler and Perdue released a joint statement on Monday. They said not only are the Braves a Georgian institution, but...
Wait, I thought we were talking about Cartoon Network. Wait, hold on. So when you were talking about Cartoon Network, and on this episode that you uploaded specifically with, like, a Johnny Bravo thumbnail, as if this was, like, the central idea of the entire video, why are we now talking about the Braves thing? I came here to talk about Steven Universe, asshole. Why are we talking about football teams? Me know sports. I know generally why the conversations were happening in those circles, but again, me know sports. Me know throw ball. Me fat.
With a history spanning 54 years in Atlanta, they're an American institution. The Braves name honors our nation's Native American heritage, which should not be erased. Under no circumstances should one of the most celebrated teams in sports cave to the demands of the cancel culture and the radical left.
Not really cancel culture or the radical left if the ones with the power and the money are the football managers. The power dynamic is in their favor at that point. But anyway, I'm not... Again, we're talking about football now. We're not talking about Cartoon Network, and I want to talk about cartoons. But apparently, he's just going to keep on going on this,
Only 20% of
right?
Georgia voters surveyed said they believe that the baseball team needs to change its name. More than 70% of voters say the name should be kept. That is one of the reasons why they are making that move.
Okay, cool. Well, whatever. That's not... So he only wanted to deal with this single set of paneling here. That's it. That's all. Dude, you could have talked about the other 3 panels. This is only a 5-minute video. You can definitely carve 5 minutes out of content talking about these panels, Ben. And yet here we are. Ben, said it's a baseball team. Again, me no sports. Me no ball. Me dumb. Why can't these people stay on topic? The same reason I can't stay on topic, but meh. Came for the cartoons, got sports stuff. Yeah. Yeah. What's a baseball? I don't know what a baseball is. What even is it? Is that like some red-pilled right-winger trying to make a sport? Hey guys, let's play red pill and baseball. Jesus fuck. Anyway, I guess I didn't get to talk about cartoons as much as I thought. This is what I get for trying to do these, like, live and not in edited form. Oh, well. That's what I get for trying. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, hopefully that was somewhat enjoyable, even though it went on a tangent about sports, which is not where I wanted to go. I just really want to talk about Steven Universe. Fuck. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. If you haven't followed over on Twitch, twitch.com/NecoSuris, or twitch.tv/NecoSuris, please consider doing so. If you want to support the channel and what I do, the best ways to do that are a combination of ways that are listed in the description. You can hop over on Patreon and become a monthly patron. You can hop over to Streamlabs or Ko-fi to throw a single one-time donation. You can do any number of things. You can go onto Amazon and throw either equipment or fucking Magic the Gathering cards at me, whatever. You do you. I'm not going to tell you how to support the show, aside from liking and throwing to people who would like to see it. With that said, though, as always, thank you for watching, and insert end of video tagline here.